Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
The Naked Gun from the files of the Police Squad. From the files of Police Squad. It's the full title of the movie that came out in 1988. A hilarious movie. Comedy starring the one and only Leslie Nielsen, who's done, 3 of the Naked Gun films, but so many spoofs over the years. Somebody that started out as more of a serious actor. I recently watched a movie with Leslie Nielsen that was where he was trying to be like the man's man kind of character in the movie. And that's a weird tone to see Leslie Nielsen try to pull off. Whereas this, he is like the lovable idiot in a lot of ways. And a comedy that you really don't see anymore. You don't see this kind of comedy at all. Like, even movies that try to get close to this, like Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar, I would say is similar. That's more of the modern style of this kind of a wacky comedy. Where this one, it's not a spoof comedy where it necessarily is referencing specific movies. I'm sure there are specific references from specific films in this movie, but a lot of it is making fun of just common tropes that happen in a hard-boiled detective type of noir film, which this one has as its kind of base coat, and then it's layered on with tons of comedy. You have this movie where you have Frank Drebin, who is Detective Frank Drebin, who is trying to foil the plans of an assassination attempt. Queen Elizabeth II is coming to the U.S. to watch a baseball game. And there is a plot to assassinate her, and Frank Drebin is there to try and spoil those plans. So you have an interesting premise where it's similar to, I believe, The Manchurian Candidate, which I don't think I've ever seen, but you have like the hypnotized assassin type of a deal. Then you also have Frank Drebin. You have this like little love story that's also going on during the movie. But as far as like the comedy, the jokes, there are so many jokes. The frequency of jokes in this movie is higher than most movies ever. Like, there are so many jokes where not only are like ridiculous situations amped up to like 3 clicks past a high level. Like, if everything was a ridiculous at a level 10, this movie takes the ridiculousness to like 13. You know, everything, which helps balance out on a lot of ways, or not balance out, but it makes the fact that Frank Drebin is a dumb character, which that's also very common in comedies where they just make a character stupid and being stupid is funny. At least in most movies, they think that just being stupid is funny. But like, Frank Drebin, Leslie Nielsen's character, has like a confidence to a stupidity that helps him sell it. Like, he is so like not completely dumb, but like just slightly off the mark constantly. But then when you have everything around him being amped up to a ridiculousness level of 13, it makes what he does kind of makes sense. Like, we're already in this ridiculous world where like puns are brought to life, you know, and you have this detective that's just stupid, but is somehow able to make his way through the situation in order to get his man, right? Like, he's trying really hard despite the fact that he's stupid, but he's not like stupid like where there's other people around him that like it's noticeable that he's stupid. It's just kind of like making fun of police detectives in general, making fun of police, making fun of those things in movies where it's like, oh, the detective knows all, but this, he's playing the other side of that.
The Many Faces is an ongoing abstract ink portrait series that I started many years ago. I release a new face every day, but go to inspireddisorder.com to check them out. So many available. But as a listener to The Ray Taylor Show, you can save 10% when you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out. So go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF, that stands for The Many Faces. Go check them out, browse the entire collection, and when you decide on a piece, or maybe multiple pieces, make sure you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out, and you'll save 10%. As a big thank you for checking out my work, for collecting my work, and for listening to The Ray Taylor Show. And with that said, let's get back to the show.
But I think the fact that they're able to make this confidently stupid guy surround him in just absurd ridiculousness makes it all pay off. And the humor isn't like it like holds up, right? There's not humor that relies on like racism. Like so much comedy from like the 80s and 70s is like relies on like racism, relies on sexism, relies on like homophobia. Where it didn't really feel like any of these jokes were doing that at all. In my opinion, it didn't feel like that. Maybe there was stuff that I just didn't notice, but it didn't. Like, there's definitely movies where it's noticeable, where it's just like clearly the thing these writers thought was funny is just hate speech on some level. Like, isn't it funny we're being racist? This movie's not really concerned with that. It's poking fun at like everything, the absurdity of every aspect of this movie, just in the funniest way. It was the most fun I've had watching a comedy film. One, it actually made me laugh. Like, despite the fact that Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar is like on some level similar to this movie, like just kind of with the ridiculousness. But I did not like Barb and Star. I did not find it funny. I thought the main characters were annoying and purposefully annoying. They are told to be annoying, and I agree with the movie that they are annoying, and they are not good friends to each other, which is common. Like, you could compare it to Dumb and Dumber, where those guys are annoying. But they're like annoying to bad people in the movie. And they're dumb, but then they're like, they're at their heart, they care about each other. I don't know. I didn't like Barb and Star. This movie I loved. I thought it held up. I thought it was great. And even the fact that O.J. Simpson is in this movie, right? O.J. Simpson plays Nordberg, where there's the running gag throughout this movie of Nordberg getting hurt, right? There's the opening scene, not opening scene, but early on in this film where Nordberg is busting up a thing that's going on in a boat, and he ends up getting shot, right, by a lot of people, like ridiculous, like the cranked up to 13 amount of gunshots, this guy. And then he goes, and as he's dying, it's like insult to injury, where he like accidentally puts his hand on like a hot furnace, and then falls over and he smashes his face into a cake, and then he it makes the death scene so ridiculous. But that's the whole movie, has this running bit of basically beating up on Nordberg, right? There's the death scene, which he ends up surviving. Then there's the hospital scene, which he ends up getting like folded in half. And then there's the scene at the end where he's in the wheelchair and he ends up flying down the stairs and tumbling to the field, right? In every aspect of it, O.J. Simpson's character is getting destroyed. And it's funny because, that's what life should be doing to him, considering he murdered some people. But even the fact that O.J. is in this movie would normally be like it would make me feel bad for liking this movie, knowing that like somebody who got away with murder is in this movie. But what they do to the character it almost makes it worth it, right? It was preemptive karma to have his character be the butt of all these jokes, getting beat up. And it's not because he's black. There would have been so many jokes. Like if this, maybe in the 70s, they would have made this movie and then there would have been a bunch of jokes about him being black on some level. But it's not that. It's just he's a cop and he's like, you know, he's like the cool, smooth, you know, rough and tumble cop that ends up getting just destroyed throughout the whole thing. Which I appreciated that as well. They didn't have to do the racist. They didn't have to do like the fat shaming, where it's like most modern day movies, like Melissa McCarthy's whole career is like she's dumb and fat, and that's why it's funny. It's like all of her comedies are like all the comedy is based on the fact that she's fat or dumb. And it's like that's her. For some reason, that's what she's chosen. Those are the movies that she's chosen to do. Are the ones where Melissa McCarthy is funny because she's fat and like falls over and stuff, and then she's also stupid. And I don't like that. I don't like comedies that just use these things as if they're funny. Like, oh, like the character being fat is funny for no other reason than they're fat, and there's situations where being overweight doesn't work out well. Right, they fall over, or you know they can't fit into something ridiculously small. They get stuck, maybe. You know, there's all those kind of tropes for like, oh, fat people are funny. But this movie didn't seem to do any of that stuff, which I appreciated. Join Inspired Disorder Plus today. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus to join. Membership includes members-only discounts and deals. You get access to the Ray Taylor Show completely ad-free, as well as bonus episodes. You get access to the complete live painting archive. You also get access to every single podcast ever produced by Inspired Disorder, hosted by Ray Taylor. You get access to Ray Taylor's personal blog, as well as the opportunity to ask me any questions. So if you want to start a podcast, you're into art, ask me anything. And so many more things are being added every day to Inspired Disorder Plus. So sign up today, become a member, head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. But yeah, I like this movie a lot. It's crazy because I mean that's why I went and wanted to watch this movie, review it. I'm going to watch all 3 of the Naked Gun movies. I've not watched these movies since the early 90s when I was a kid. You know, I loved, you know, slapstick comedy. A lot of this slapstick. You know, all the OJ stuff is slapstick and like ridiculous slapstick. Right? Like when he's dying and he like plants his face in a birthday cake. There's no reason for a birthday cake to be in that scene. But you understand what the scene is doing, where they're just throwing all these ridiculous things that after being shot, it would be funny if the character also got his face smashed in a cake, if he also accidentally stepped into a bear trap, if he also burnt his hand on a furnace. And that's what this movie is. It's like adding all of those little things to every single moment. It's also like the movie that had the hot mic while taking a piss scene, which is hilarious. So you have towards the end of the film, like he knows that like somebody that's playing in this baseball game, one of the players is the hypnotized assassin. So it's him trying to figure out how to sneak on the field, trying to be different people multiple times, and like while things are going on, trying to pat the players down. It's got it's just so funny. I was so happy to sit down because I thought this movie would not hold up at all. Because so many, especially comedies, like it's so easy for a comedy to just be offensive as a shortcut to instead of trying to be funny. Like offensive is funny for so many movies. And I 100% thought this was going to be it. And it wasn't. And I also loved how this movie started out. Has a little, like, basically the premise for The Kingsman, if you've ever watched that movie, where it's like all these evil leaders get together around a giant table and have these meetings about how they're going to. It's like what all the conspiracy theorists happen, like this deep state thing, where it's like they think that all of these leaders are somehow like organized and working together. Where they're like all these evil leaders around a table, and that's how this movie starts out. But it's all the evil leaders of the 80s, which, you know, I wasn't big into international politics back in my early years as a human. So, you know, didn't necessarily recognize all of the people. But it's basically, and then, you know, Leslie Nielsen's character comes in and shuts it all down. Basically, the premise for the entire movie known as The Kingsman, which or spoofed again in Austin Powers movies. But yeah, that was funny. I was super surprised and happily surprised. I was expecting to have to talk shit or point out the moments of this movie that don't hold up. But I was just not get a lot of the jokes because they were in reference to movies that I haven't seen. But even if they were, I don't think they were referring to any specific films in this movie. I think if they were referring to I think they were referring to specific tropes that happen in films, which I can appreciate that. So I was pleasantly surprised. I'm excited to see what happens. I have a feeling the sequels, the comedy gets lazier because that's just how things happen in movies, but we'll see. But I was pleasantly surprised. If you have not watched The Naked Gun in a while, I would highly recommend checking it out because it is a lot of fun. I literally laughed out loud, which very rarely happens watching comedies, for me anyway. So I'd check it out. And Leslie Nielsen plays like the perfect kind of like lovable idiot that's like trying really hard but like really bad at his job, but then somehow stumbles into success. I loved it, you know, paired with the ridiculousness of the reality that he's living in. It makes perfect sense. It's like the perfect Leslie Nielsen role is these Naked Gun movies, at least this first one. Hopefully the next one, next week, we'll see. Naked Gun 2.5, I think it's called. But anyway, check it out if you haven't, The Naked Gun.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.